Hi guys, so I want to make a quick video update to let you all know what's been happening. I haven't updated for so long and so much has been happening and going on, and I think that I really need to do this update so I can tell you what's going on in my life right now. So I can't remember the last pregnancy vlog I did, but I am now 38 weeks pregnant, so I'm 9.5 months full term, still pregnant, and yeah, so anyway, missed a lot of weeks. But anyway, so what's been happening? Well, generally everything has just been a nightmare. Everything that could go wrong kind of did go wrong. We've had some tragic deaths in the family, infant deaths, not in my family, but in my, like, brother and sister-in-law's family. You know, they lost two children, and it's just been horrific. We've had funerals, and we're still awaiting post-mortem results. Just absolutely hideous. We've had pets, you know, that have been with us for, 15 years pass away. And just multiple things like that would normally rock any family, but that's been on top of everything else that's been happening. We've all been really, really unwell, and particularly my husband. If you're a regular viewer of mine, you'll know that my husband is disabled. He has a very rare genetic disease, and I'm his carer. And he got really, really unwell to the point where they wanted to hospitalise him for at least about 2 weeks so they could, adjust his medication. He's on a lot of really strong, dangerous medications, so these things have to be changed very carefully and being monitored whilst they're doing these changes. And we had a Macmillan nurse that was coming out trying to arrange for him to go into a hospice, but they couldn't arrange a bed for him there, so it was going to be a case of being hospitalised for about at least 2 or 3 weeks. And it just got to the point where my husband was so distressed at the thought of being away from me for that long. I've been caring for him for many, many years, and we're never really apart for long. And I got really distressed at the thought of not being able to care for him. He has some quite specific needs, and anyway, so we worked with the Macmillan nurses and the doctors, and we were able to do these changes at home, which was a miracle really, and that's kind of stabilised him that way. But that was really hard going for a while. But then with me, I became extremely unwell. Basically, if you're a viewer of mine, you know that I have a condition called hyperemesis, which is severe morning sickness. Normal morning sickness generally tends to wear off about 12-13 weeks into the pregnancy. I'm full term now. I'm 9.5 months pregnant, and I'm still on 6 anti-sickness tablets a day. Severe vomiting, all sorts. Anyway, so yeah, I had that, and then of course I had SPD, which is symphysis pubis dysfunction, which is where where your pubic area is. The bones are like moving, or they're not in a position where they should be, and it just causes a lot of pain, especially with the weight of the uterus bearing down on it, and it just makes things very difficult. It got to the point where I was in so much pain I couldn't walk. I was using crutches, a walking cane, a frame, I mean, they wanted to put me in a wheelchair, but I was like, I've got 4 kids and a disabled husband. I'm not going to be able to use a wheelchair. It's just not happening. So that happened, but I could cope with those symptoms. It's just that suddenly I became really unwell. I just felt awful. I knew something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it. I had no energy. I was really struggling to cope, really struggling to manage, with the children and my husband, and I just knew there was something that wasn't right. Anyway, so I went to see my midwife, and they were doing lots of blood tests and stuff to try and work out what could be happening. My blood pressure was going up, and I had severe swelling, not just in my hands and feet like with normal pregnancy, but my whole face. I don't know if you can see, Ina can see it now, but like my face is really swollen. I've been doing some contouring trying to disguise how fat and swollen my face is, but it swelled up really bad, and my whole nose like swelled up. I can't wear my wedding rings and haven't been able to for a long time, but you know, this was like a different thing. I had severe itching all over my body, like I was having a really severe allergic reaction to something. So the kids are in the boot playing. Anyway, where to go? But my brain is just so frazzled right now, and I'm trying to think of everything. Anyway, they discovered at one of my midwife appointments that I was measuring 6 weeks ahead of my due dates. So my fundal height, the height of my uterus, at 30 weeks I was measuring 36 weeks. At 31 weeks, 31 weeks I'd be measuring 37 weeks, etc., etc. And so they were a bit concerned because they said, well, it could be that you have too much amniotic fluid, which could mean that the baby is too small, or it could be that the baby's on the large size, so that I had to have constant like fetal growth scans. But it turned out that my water fluids were fine. I had the right amount of amniotic fluid. There was nothing alarming there. The baby was measuring very, very big. I forget at how many weeks, say like 31 weeks, she was measuring about 6 pounds, and it was just growing, it was accelerating at quite an alarming rate. So they were convinced at this point that I had gestational diabetes. So I had all the sugar glucose tests done, absolutely hideous, but that came back negative. I didn't have it. So then they were saying, well, we think it could be Graves' disease, which is like a thyroid dysfunction, you know, where you have either an overactive thyroid or an underactive thyroid. So they were testing me for that, and at the same time they were testing me for another condition called obstetric cholestasis, which is where basically your liver in pregnancy, it doesn't cope with I don't know how this works, I'm not that medical, but basically your liver produces salts, bile salts I think it is, and instead of them being eliminated properly throughout the blood in the body, they store up under the skin somehow and cause the itching. I've probably like made a right pig's ear of that description. You'll probably be like, that's not what it is. There's something to do with that, right? And it can be really dangerous for the baby, and it can result in stillbirth and stuff like this. So they're testing me for all this stuff, and they just put so much fear in me. Like, it was one thing after another, and everything came back negative. And but I knew that I felt ill. I knew something wasn't right. So I was like really freaked out. Anyway, they finally found out after all this that I am severely anemic. Now, I don't know how the calculations work, but my levels came back at like 80, which is like dangerously low, and it's not like it's life-threateningly low, but it's dangerously low. But the problem is that they weren't so much concerned about the levels. It was the fact that I was so anemic at this stage in the pregnancy, because I'm about to give birth, which means I'm about to lose a lot of blood, and that could definitely be life-threatening with the amount of anemia that I was coming back measuring at. So I had to have an iron infusion. Shh, hi guys, shush now a minute for mummy. I had to have an iron infusion, and they've got me on 3 iron tablets of 200 milligram of iron per day. So I'm on 600 milligram of iron, as well as I've had this iron infusion, and I'm feeling a lot better than what I did. And I just feel so frustrated that it was something so simple as anemia. I mean, those people watching me talking into my phone. Anemia is like not a rare thing. You know, most people will have anemia at some point in their life, and you know, all of those symptoms. I mean, not all of them, obviously, like the swelling and the blood pressure might have had nothing to do with my anemia, but the point is how I was feeling so ill, that came down to being anemic. And what was happening was, when I was having my blood pressure taken, my pulse rate was really, really high, as in like 120, 118, and they were quite freaked out by that. So now my pulse rate is still a little bit high. It's about 105, 100, but it's getting better. It's getting better. But I mean, I was so exhausted. Can you take that off him, please, Christine? He's found...
Whatever he's got.
Yeah, well, let's just watch him with it. He's got a lip balm, and I think he's probably going to try and eat it. Don't eat it, baby. I know it's strawberry flavoured. Oh, okay. Anyway, so that's what happened with that so far. I would like to come up with a part 2, because this video is already like... Christina, stop knocking on the window when there's people there. She's like knocking on our window at people trying to get in their car, and they keep looking at her. Christina, why would you do that for? So embarrassing. Anyway, yeah, I need to tell you a whole lot more stuff. So I'm going to come up with a part 2 quickly, if you can bear it. And I hope that I've made sense enough in this video. But I'll come back in a second and make a part 2. Okay, guys, I'll see you in a minute. Bye.